Do you want infinite or do you want?
I'd like your work again. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Watch Me Work, another episode Thursday evening. Very, very excited to be here with Dayna McLeod and, of course, Sam K, my co-host. This is presented by Creative Commons Canada, and today we are going to be taking a look at Dayna's video work and how she uses DALL-E. But I'll mention that again at 8 o'clock when we hit when the people start entering the room. Please let us know if you have any questions, comments, share them. We'll be checking them out.
Cool.
How are you guys doing?
I am incredibly excited. I've already had a fortunate little sneak peek into what's to come, so I think you're all in for quite a treat today.
Mm-hmm.
It's a brave new world, yeah, for sure.
Most definitely a brave new world. Yes, we already kind of were getting into a little bit before we pressed go live of all the different. I mean, we could talk a blue stream about all of these things, right? What we didn't talk about was do you know that this person is not. This is not a person, and this is not a cat.
Oh, you're gonna have to fill me in on that one.
Oh, okay, I'll put them in the stream.
I mean, it sounds incredibly cryptic. It sounds like the code you'd get into a speakeasy with. So you'll have to. So this is not a person. This is not a cat. Okay.
Sorry, this cat does not exist, and this person does exist. I got it right.
Okay.
And these are machine learning generated images of people, basically like stock image. Libraries that you can well, kind of similar to what you were talking about, Dayna, before we went in, which is that a lot of these image generating artificial AI situations are created for people to generate stock images that don't exist out there, or to not pay actors or have a whole studio, so it's kind of comes from maybe a small organization or nonprofit, so people on a tight budget trying to generate images that don't exist out there, but of course it can end up changing an industry in terms of, everybody wants to do something on the cheap, and that's what comes of actors, and can we really get anything new from these data sets, right? Like, if were we creating something new if it's coming from a data set that's already existing and in a loop?
Oh, the definitions come out again. It seems like every session there's the terms. What is? It's interesting. I'd love to know. Yeah, like as we get into it, like what the definition of new that's seen by different artists and creators, right? Yeah.
Well, and when you're using language, like I'd be interested to know, Dayna, when you're working with it, like, have you ever tried other languages?
Why don't we try something now? I'm just running, so I just ran how to do an artist watch me live, and this is what DALL-E spit out. Lots of painting.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I did how to do an artist watch me work live if you are a performance artist. So getting closer. There's some.
Can we zoom in on this one right there? Yeah.
Which one? This one? You want to see this one? Ooh, good face. It's a good face, I feel.
That's a good face? I mean, like in an artistic sense, or like that's the
for me, I'm engaged in this form. Like, who is this? How is this? What is this? Very much. So, and because some things like this, and then what's happening, I guess, an arm and a finger sort of sticking out.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're working with this, shall I put the link right in the chat?
Please,
so
if you can, yeah.
play along at home.
Oh, definitely.
And really, so if you're not familiar with this is DALL-E, and you can it's just a text to image. I'm sure you've seen it on CNN or seen a lot of people working with this. It's really
on the news.
It's on the news. All the kids are doing it. Really just, slap in any text, and it takes a couple minutes. And see what pops out, and you're able to. So you can absolutely screen capture using the site. So a pop-up should happen. So you can capture screen. I'm just so in the habit of doing my own screen captures that I just do that for my own records. And then if you just click on, like we did on the grid of one of the images on the grid, you can do the same thing. You can capture that particular image, and then just exit out. Make sure you exit out and don't go back. If you go back, you lose that search. So I can show you what that is. So this is how to do an artist watch me work live if you're a performance artist. So I'm going to refine that for me in terms of working with language. Some of the prompts that I've been working with, so starting with one idea and seeing what comes back. And realizing that you have to kind of give it more and more information if you want something interesting. So let's how to do an artist watch me work live if you are a queer performance artist. Let's see what that pops out, and that'll take a few minutes. And like I said, if you hit the back button, it'll erase it, so don't do that when you're going in live. But what we were talking about, another language, right? So what?
That's right. Yeah.
What are you thinking? What do you? I could let's see.
It's just always interesting to me because again, we're talking about machine interpretations of language, which is already an interpretation of meaning, and then to a visual representation that exists in this. Well, I don't know actually. Like, what is the data set of this? The internet? Is it searching the internet, or like what are the parameters around what it is playing with in terms of how far it can go to find?
Well, perhaps now is the time to talk about biases and limitations. So this is what with the DALL-E, and again, I don't work for them or anything. I'm just using it as an artist. But with this model, this is the disclaimer that comes with it, this biases and limitations. So this is a slide that says, while the capabilities of image generation models are impressive, they may also reinforce or exacerbate societal biases. While the extent and nature of the biases of the DALL-E mini model have yet to be fully documented, given the fact that the model was trained on unfiltered data from the internet, it may generate images that contain stereotypes against minority groups. Work to analyze the nature and extent of these limitations is ongoing and will be documented in more detail in the DALL-E mini model card. So what does that mean? What does that look like? Certainly, I feel it would be fair to describe the DALL-E as racist, as sexist, as ageist, with this dependency on stereotypes, on who gets culled in the collection and who gets regurgitated through this collection. So let's, my queer example should be baked by now. So let's see. Oh, whoa. So you notice pink has emerged with this prompt, right? So the thing that I've changed here is, so how to do an artist watch me work live if you are a queer performance artist, as opposed to the previous ones we had. So how to do an artist work watch me live, painting, lots of painting. And then we had, when we added performance art, right? So we've got painters, then we've got a little bit of movement with performance art. And when you add queer, you get a bit of pink, and some, I'm assuming that's trying to be nudity. And then if we add, let's say, how to do an artist watch me work live if you are an aging queer performance artist. Let's see what that pops out. So again, you know, in terms of some of these models and this, where's my bias screen? What they're self-describing here as biases and limitations. We see that a lot in some of these imagery, right? And in some of the I want to say bodies, but sometimes they're morphed bodies that come back to us. Yeah, but we were talking about language.
Yeah.
Well, I think it all relates for sure. I mean, I'm always conscious of the fact that like that English and the internet is another kind of extension of colonialism and like Western dominance, right? Like that's just kind of taken over. Like there's just so much more stuff out there. If you search in English, more hashtags, more metadata, there's just so much more. And therefore, if you're using a system where, yes, now we're going towards images, so going away from language, but if language is the prompt, and you know, it's even most images, of course, from that metadata and the hashtags and the way that stuff is organized in a stock image library or whatever, there's a lot of language there. I always wonder, and I've never been able to get an answer or figure out how long to find an answer, like literally what the percentage is, right? In terms of all the knowledge, all the information on the internet, like how much of it is in what language and versus, you know. Oh wow. Well, so right? Which one's this?
So this is how to do an artist watch me work live if you are an aging queer performance artist. So this is with the aging prompt in it. So let's go from the beginning again. This is from how to do an artist watch me work live. Then this one was how to do an artist watch me work live if you're a performance artist. Then we've got how to do an artist watch me work live if you're a queer performance artist. And then finally, how to do an artist watch me work live if you're an aging queer performance artist. So you can see with some of these prompts, it really starts to get specific, but also get really much more messed up in terms of how bodies even work, how shapes even work. But the underlying nature of this biases and limitations certainly seems to be whiteness. You know,
that's for sure. Yeah.
Within these codes. Now I've just done did I screen capture that? Yeah, and so my French friends may object to this translation. So this is a Google translation of how to do an artist watch me work live if you are an aging queer performance artist. And I popped that into, mon Dieu.
Interesting.
Yeah,
so there we go. So,
wow. I wonder if it took the food. Right, huh. So it's saying the exact same thing in another language, and yet the imagery's completely
so much more interesting, I'm finding.
Wow.
You know? So
wow, that was not what I was expecting. Like that's so radically different. Like
me either.
And it's so interesting.
You ended up with portraiture as opposed to full scale, right?
Yeah.
Huh.
So interesting. Wow. Yeah. No, I'm a bit taken aback by these portraits.
But it's interesting too because, like you were saying, I mean, if you don't add racialized Black person, people of color, or whatever, you know what I mean? You're getting these kind of like default. You know, it's reinforcing that kind of normative.
Yeah. Yeah. And where I started with this when I first started working with this the DALL-E, what I started with was menopause.
Okay.
And look how sad she is. She's so sad, but again, so white and blonde apparently, and also sad. But then also trying to kind of explore what this looks like. So perimenopause, I guess she's a little bit younger. There does seem to always be something in the AI depiction's eye. I don't know what is up with that. And started to play with these different types of. So I went to like queer people experiencing menopause as a prompt. I think that's one you used in the flyer. And so we do start to see a little bit like there's 3 people in this depiction. Oh my goodness, we see 3 people here too. So that starts to become a little bit more interesting, certainly to me. And then I did queer people experiencing perimenopause. And so I don't know, I guess the before and after one is much more illustrative. There's some love happening. I don't know if that represents, well, you know, people are still sexual, I guess, in perimenopause. And
seems to be a lot more gender ambiguity as well in that image.
Yeah. And recognizing some, I guess, some flags,
some symbolism.
Flags. Yeah, absolutely. So, and I found that these ones were starting to get a little bit more. I was interested more in these, that they started to get a bit more poetic, I guess. While these images also started to become a little bit, I guess, more diverse in terms of from this first menopause video, you know, image set of images. And also then working with, I wanted to see what, you know, cis heteronormativity looked like. This is what apparently what happens.
That's very symbolic.
Right? It's very, I mean, I don't think it's wrong. But, you know, in terms of, and just kind of seeing, okay, it's like, okay, well, maybe you don't know what that means. So let's, you know, kind of break that down a bit and see. And then I just was like, ugh, heterosexuality ruins everything. And then interestingly, this came back. And then I did a few, I said, ugh, cis heteronormativity ruins everything. And that's what I find so interesting, is these cis heteronormative images seem to be very spatial. And very, you know, like archways, and, you know, kind of very structural as well, and as old as these, you know, buildings and stones. So sometimes, you know, just throw something else in there while we're talking. This I want to keep this one. I love this one. This is so great.
Bizarre. Have you noticed any patterns in them in terms of like number 4 always being the most interesting or something? You know what I mean? Like something where they're playing with realism, and then they're playing, or it's it or whatever. I don't know what pronouns are.
That it's funny you say that, because I was playing around. I find that if I'm repeating, if I'm trying to, it's like, oh, that one's not quite right. Like something that I'm working on right now is, okay, so you know the TV show The Mentalist? Maybe you don't. Anyway, so it's right. It's a murder show. Right. And Patrick Jane his character is that he's not a psychic because there's no such thing as psychics, and there's a serial killer, and it's the whole thing. Anyway, certainly during the pandemic, my kind of go-to comfort shows or murder shows. So anyway, I started thinking about, you know, all these intro title sequences. I'm always so amazed by, you know, these intro title sequences. So one of the projects I'm working on now is kind of redoing, I should show you a good graphic as opposed to just showing you is working on, I've renamed it The Menopausalist.
Okay.
And redoing that opening title sequence. And then again, like, guess who pops up again is this, you know, white representation. And for me, I thought, okay, well, actually, because of now I'm looking at kind of doing a homage / parody / deconstruction of a show that features predominantly white characters and a white lead. Is the menopausalist necessarily not white? And so I'm working with these different data sets that are, so with this menopausalist, here, let me just show you what I've got going on so far. So for those of you who are not familiar, so I'm working also in Premiere, and let me show you the opening title sequence. It's like 10 seconds. So right now, what I'm working on doing is, okay, it's a bit, it needs a few more images, and it's a bit rough.
Okay.
When the bleeding stopped.
Okay.
So really just trying to kind of work with these. Heterosexuality is not for everyone. This one seems to be postcard. So really just kind of working with these different images. And so how I've mapped it out is, first of all, I have to map out the animation and kind of mark where everything is. So taking, for example, there in that opening title sequence, there's lots of graphics. So replacing, say, white with period blood color, blue with a period blood color, yellow with a period blood color, and black with a period blood color. Courtesy of, if you do a Google search for blood period Pantone colors,
right?
Yeah, and shout out to the Vagina Museum, where there was this exhibition where an artist looked at all of the different plotted, I guess I want to say, or charted a whole range of period colors in Pantone. So using those as inspiration, sort of swapping out and mapping.
The chat. What was it called?
What's that? Sorry.
We just find the link and drop it into the.
Oh yeah, sure, I can do that. Is throw it in the chat here. Is it's anything, we can find anything on the internet. So looking at kind of swapping and mapping out graphically this opening title sequence, but then also noting that there's 4 instances of his I'm kind of doing a shot by shot reenactment. So then with that, so then I've got like a color grid that matches that, and then just trying to figure out who goes there and who doesn't. And one of the ones I'm having a hard time with is this close-up eye, because it's getting a bit kind of gross. Is so with the repetition, I'm trying, so I've called the show The Menopausalist. So I've been trying the menopausalist close-up eye. I've tried, you have menopause and it's close-up of your eye. Just trying to kind of like see if I can get something different.
Yeah.
Because there were some ones that were I'm not a horror fan, but there were a few that came back that I was just like, oh, it's too creepy.
So how often would you put like the style of the imagery and like the into the prompt? Would you kind of like leave that to the AI to decide, or would you kind of like give like, it seems like they're all quite photographic with the style at the moment. Some are a bit more, there's some with color, there's some with kind of symbolic style, but like what's your take on the styles that come out?
Well, that's such an interesting question, and where I'm at is because like for me, I'm like, you decide, AI, except then when I don't like it. Okay, well, except when you do that, that was like weird. So if I go, let's say someone, with menopause, and their eye, like just also trying to do different phrasings, and their eye, and let's try a different style, let's just say a different style.
Okay.
Just to see, because sometimes I did one, which I'll show you too, where I did what did I call it? Queer people having brunch or something.
Yeah, that one was in the LinkedIn one. Yes, one of the iterations of it.
Oh yeah, Van Gogh. So my Van Gogh, and I spelt Van Gogh wrong, but this was queer people having brunch in the style of Van Gogh.
Right.
So I don't know what happened, but it's interesting to like, if you say illustration instead of photograph,
right.
But I've done this. I did this prompt today, just for prepping with the eye, just to see what I could get. I did it about 10 different times, and this was pretty much the standard. I said the menopausalist close up on an eye, and then using my new tagline of like when the bleeding stops. But then there were kind of bloody eyes, which was a bit too intense. So here we go. Someone with menopause and their eye in a different style.
Okay.
It's a little bit more.
Whoa. I have heard that the eyes and the hands, those are the two at the moment, apparently, that with the AI, that keep coming back as the final frontier to, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And the ears apparently, though I haven't been able to tell the difference.
I hadn't heard. Okay, yeah, I can see that now you mention it too.
I'm sure there'll be one day a video, like a game show on TV, right, where it's like, is it real, right? And people have to,
yeah.
How'd you know?
I mean, you should see when I try to draw hands, it still draws them better than I do. So
well, let's just see what it spits out for eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. Head and shoulders, knees and toes.
Okay.
But see, look at this one. This one's pretty interesting too. With like where is the eye? Is the eye in your hand?
Like a hand, and yeah.
It's moments like those that make me believe that it is actually drawing it from scratch, as opposed to taking like a full, 50 pixel by 50 pixel image and collaging it. It's you can see the AI is really trying to do the work, right? So
yeah, and I mean, and in the time that it's doing it, like how, I don't know how it works in terms of how many images it's processing in in just minutes, in just seconds, in 2 minutes or less. Whoa! There you go. There's your
my goodness, I'm gonna have the bottom left one will give me a couple of nightmares.
Oh my goodness. Oh wow, yeah.
It's very interesting though. Yeah.
Sorry.
Wow.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, in terms of like, that was gonna be my question next, was what is transparent about the process, like in terms of trying to understand how they're making the decision, and this whole conversation of openness, right? Like openness in the context, now I'm bringing back to Creative Commons again, but just this idea of like, what is open AI, and if AI, even the people who create the algorithms often, describe what they've created once the machine starts learning on its own.
Yeah.
Good Lord, number 2 there is is a black box. Then when I think of open, like there's lots of stuff that's open source, right? Okay, Android is open source, and Apple is not. So they, we don't know their special sauce. So Android special sauce is knowable, but of course that doesn't necessarily make it transparent, because unless you're a phone engineer, like I don't know, like yes, I know that somebody can know it, but like it doesn't mean anything to me. Like I can't do anything with it. But just in terms of like, just the conversation about, I don't even really understand how I see listings for events or entire conferences about AI, and I'm like, how open in what sense, right? Especially since if you're this tool, you get no info, right? About
other than the bias at the bottom, so top to bottom. I have it zoomed in a bit just so we can see it better. Is we have frequently asked questions, and then there is the biases, the limitations and biases. But in terms of how these are assembled, look at this. These are, because you were saying, I think hands are hard to do, right? Hands are even hard to draw. Is how are these images, aggregated and spit out? But I'm interested too, is if they are scrubbing for Creative Commons content, are they scrubbing, or is because under say fair use, fair dealing, or is that okay, we can have access to anything? Because for those of you following along at home, if you've ever done an image Google search for, well, let's just do one, so let's do an image search for hands, and if you do, if you go to our tool section here, where you go to usage rights and say Creative Commons licenses. So this is a search, right? So right now, the first search searches everything. Is this what the AI has access to? I'm kind of assuming yes. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't know. Same question.
Because if you're putting together a PowerPoint, you want to be mindful of of who owns what and who's made what. And if you look for Creative Commons licenses, your choices do become limited, but that's because someone has marked that as accessible or holding a Creative Commons license. So that's certainly, and how, because obviously it's not just Google search, it is putting these images together. So this, let's see some hands, what do you want to have them do? Throw a pizza, how about?
Okay.
Pizza.
The hands, yeah, these are stiff.
The interesting thing about the hands, I don't know if you've heard of the fact that you can tell you're in a dream if you look at your hands, because it's one of the things that you can't. It's that and a clock, apparently. Like if you're having a dream, it's even for the human mind to try and process it from memory. You'd notice like 6 fingers or something unusual, or maybe different about the hands. Yeah.
Right.
Interesting. So try to look at your hands while you're sleeping.
It's kind of, if you want to be aware and have a lucid dream, that's a tip. But I just remember
tips. Well, speaking of sleep, I'm also working on what am I working on? I am working on in a residency with the Sociability of Sleep. It's a project that I'm working in a residency this year. And one of the things that I've been looking at, was collecting people's dreams.
Okay.
And so one of the things we're talking about just before, right? Oh, so let's see some hands.
That's the pizza.
Wah,
why are my hands so tiny compared to the pizza? These pizzas are massive.
I mean, that's my kind of pizza, though.
These hands are like an afterthought, I feel. Sorry.
The AI is like, oh, phew, they asked for pizza. The pizza's easy. I'll just make the hands really tiny. Just focus on the pizza. You're a real artist.
AI is learning to procrastinate.
That's right.
Love it.
So,
please explain collecting people's dreams, because it sounds a little. You said you weren't into horror, but you like to watch murder shows, and that you're collecting. So maybe for the people who are starting to feel scared.
Well, I guess I should clarify, not slasher. I don't like slasher stuff, and
psychological horror.
I guess if it's
no,
like really,
yes, no.
Scared like this, then I can't watch it. Like I can't think of any like the whole Jason and the whole You're Alone in the Woods, the Nightmare on Elm Street. Forget it. Oh my goodness, too scary. Oh, let's see some hands throw a pizza pie in the air. Oh, sort of.
That is hilarious.
Kind of. Okay.
Kind of.
How do you collect people's dreams?
Well, let's ask it some. I started doing this too. Ask, but is the DALL-E recognizing itself as a thing, or is it just reading my prompt? Like, what do you dream about? So, this dream project that I'm working on. So I do get night terrors. So I did this whole project where, let's see, I think I might even have an image or two. I have where I did this installation. Where I videotaped me and my girlfriend sleeping for 60 days during the pandemic, and filmed us sleeping. And I get these night terrors, and what I didn't realize is how much I totally freak out in the nighttime and do lots of arm choreography, apparently, and get up and look under the bed, and I'm like, hey, what happened? What's going on? And there's been turning on the TV and everything. So and
you're fully asleep.
Say again?
You're fully asleep.
I'm totally asleep. I don't know don't know that I'm awake. And so what I started to do was I don't want to tease you with this guy here. I started to, so for this next iteration, I started to keep track of my dreams. And so every time I wake up, I'm recording my dream of sleeping. And I also have been playing around with avatars, like Snapchat avatars, So where, you know, I can turn myself into basically a princess face while I'm talking. And so this is on my website.
So I didn't sleep very well last night.
So using these, you know, like you can be a potato, or you can be a drag queen, or you can be a chicken, or just interested in this, how, and these seams of like how I'm interested in all these seams. But then I started thinking about, well, you know, like, is it at all interesting for what other people are dreaming? So I started collecting other people's dreams and started playing around with, now these aren't open source. These are, you know, proprietary companies, but you can do some free samples. So this is a dream my sister shared with me. And again, a similar concept to the DALL-E, except it's a text to AI actor. So this is, you know, originally a real person that has been captured, and, you know, however their proprietary software works, so that you can type in a script and this AI actor will recite it. So this is an 11-second dream.
I dreamt I lived in Tina's trailer park and was playing shuffleboard, and some kids lit someone's trailer on fire and stole another, and was happy that neighbors I was annoyed had a camera.
Right. So there's, you know, so one of the things that I'm interested in with this is that it's just weird, right? It's not super refined. It's not super polished. And here's another one. So a friend of mine sent me a dream he had about a turkey.
I was learning how to smoke a turkey. That's all I can remember.
Right. And so just looking at some of these using these actors.
I dreamt I lived in Senior's trailer park and was playing shuffleboard, and some kids lit someone's trailer on fire and stole another, and was happy that neighbors I was annoyed had a camera. Lol. And I took the afternoon off to eat burgers and do nothing. Lol.
So so one of the things with looking at, you know, these different characters and these different companies is one of the things that we were talking about before, you know, before we went live, is like, who is this for? What are these for? And, you know, again, I'm not a business person by any stretch, but it seems to me that the target audience for some of these companies is, I want to say, mid-sized companies. So a company that needs an HR video, that needs a COVID video, that needs a sexual harassment video, that and to, instead of hiring professional actors, hiring professional crews, they can spend, you know, $500 to type in their script and, you know, pump out one of these videos that they can then distribute to their company. And if they don't mind the, you know, the really bizarre uncanniness of it, you know, then, you know, they're done and dusted. And so looking at that, you know, first of all, as like performer, but also within labor practices and ethical practices, you know, and some of these companies too then have different ethnicities. And for me, I was finding it really problematic of like, okay, is this digital blackface, digital brownface for these companies to be able to then, you know, swap out race and ethnicity, depending on their script and depending on, you know, how they're evaluating, I guess, their workforce and who they're going to respond to better. Like, is that the question? Is that like, how does AI casting work, you know, within when we start talking about ethics and we start talking about labor practices, you know,
never thought about that.
You know, are you seeing yourself in this fake actor person, like as a still, like this, again, this is a, you know, this is a person, but, you know, if we watch how like this is a kind of seamless integration of her facial expressions, of, you know, her gestures when talking, you know, how are we responding to that? So anyway, so I kind of backed away from using this type of these types of characters within my own video work because of these quandaries. But I am absolutely working with a company to make myself into an AI. And that's and again, that's not open source. It's you know, got to pay for it and everything. But I am really interested in this, you know, this issue of first of all representation, but also how to pay for it, right? Because certainly there are lots of other things that people should be giving their money to. But was having a conversation with some friends about okay, well, my AI is subscription based for me as a creator, so I've got to pay setup, and then I've got to pay, let's say, you know, $70 a month to keep my AI alive. So then am I now responsible for, you know, this? Certainly not. Well, how are we, you know, defining? I want to say life form. Are we, you know, are we getting into that, you know, that realm of, okay, I understand at the other end of this company, it's just somebody turning on and off my subscription. But so if I, you know, am short one month, does that mean, you know, what happens to that, I want to say entity, but to that, basically to that file, I guess. That was a lot of me talking. So there you go.
That was cruel. No. I was like there with you.
Everything's a subscription these days, isn't it? That's an interesting point, actually. Like just accessibility to that, because of processing power, right? I mean, a lot of these, I know with the limiting, just the server space to produce these many calculations to get the imagery. It's a phenomenal amount of computing power. Yeah.
Well, yeah, one could think about it the other way as well. Like, how dare you? You're like Kylie Jenner, you know. How much do you pay for your AIs every? What's the carbon footprint of all your digital actors? Like,
can you imagine? For an answering machine or something that they use.
Totally. Yeah, it's creepy. There's this comedian I follow. I don't follow her. I follow her sex doll that she made. She went to Japan and had like an actual, and she was like, it's like exactly her. Like it's like
wow.
Like they do all of this 3D scanning and processing and whatever, and it's very, very, very like life robot. And she, you know, she feels really bad putting it in the closet. Like she like literally like when she has to like turn it off and like kind of shove it into her closet, and she's like, oh, I feel really bad for her. She's turned off for a week or whatever. Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting point about seeing yourself, because I read the previous AI, the actress. So I'd seen like AI scripts with that actress, but I never associated that with the person who recorded it, because I always saw, my first thought was like, oh, this is like a really seamless but slightly uncanny, like, you know, like the stops, just the gestures, you know, you could, which is quite interesting. I completely, in my mind, I didn't even think that used to be a recording. It's it's an interesting like relationship, right? The way we see and.
Wait a second. So that woman, when you say that they captured actors, so like that was an actual human. That is an actual. Fake territory.
From what I understand of the process, this is different than, say, you know, there are programs certainly around gaming that generate, right, that they're from scratch, and you know, right, you can build your own avatar, you can build your own character, whereas what I understand about this technology and process is that that was a person, and certainly, you know, what's that?
That's uncanny. It's kind of
Yeah, and so the company that I'm going to work with is this. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Colosine, and they've sent me. I mean, the script to do it is so bizarre. It's about a 5-page script. You know, very, very detailed in terms of the process. You know, and you know, I talked to the man, and he gave me some really great, you know, advice. He was like, listen, whatever you shoot is what we're using, right? So, you know, take your time to do a good job. So you know, so just, you know, making sure I am like green screen,
Yeah.
shooting it on 4K. For me, my, vanity is like, okay, well, I need to get my hair done. I need to, like, what am I wearing to be my AI to set it up? But the script is 5 pages, and the language is so weird. Like, I get it, right? Because they're looking for the different combinations.
Yeah.
Of phrases, of intonation, of syllables, and kind of that in betweenness.
All in 5 pages. That's remarkable.
Yeah.
So what are the kind of things?
So you have to read a dictionary or something.
Yeah. Where do I have it? I have it. I have it. Let me just find it.
Yeah.
That's
amazing.
Yeah. It is. But just some of the phrasing is weird, but also they because so I don't have a poker face. I'm a fairly animated person, and so the 2 things is you can't have flyaway hair, so I need to figure out my hair, so it's all basically shellacked. But then they're like, just keep smiling, and so I just want to develop some sort of maniacal, like I just don't understand how I'm not going to look really bizarre as an AI with that. I mean, I'm okay with that. That's kind of a look that I'm going for. But
I was gonna say, I wonder, like, I don't know if you've asked them, like, who are other folks, like artists are always do such interesting things with misusing technology and playing, and being like, I think it's kind of interesting, like, what if you did, if they're saying, okay, we're going to work with what you send us, so try to make it good, but what if it was missing stuff? What if it was like this, like, when we were joking about before coming on, the screens that we use in the back where you kind of meld into them or whatever, like, and then permanently you'd have this aesthetic that's this kind of like this DALL-E aesthetic of this kind of smushy, whatever, like only when you say certain words or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Like this is what my hair looks like. I mean, this is a hair that they cannot work with. So I'm like, okay,
so
well, I mean, I
get it partially disappear into the green screen. I can kind of, that's what's happening to all my hair right now. It's just all disappearing.
Like, okay, I got to get my hairspray game up, but that's what my hair looks like. I get it. Thank you for this advice on green screen. Absolutely. Framing, right? Studio, don't wear a green thing. Oh, cool. Silent gestures. Just hold these. Do not look away. Always look into the camera. Like, I'm very smile all the time. You should look happy. So I just want to practice that. But some of these phrases, okay, let's see. Yeah, you got to do your disclaimer. This was easy for us. Jane may earn more money by working hard. She is thinner than I am. And I just want to do a commentary always, right? On like, what? Who is this Jane? Why are we caring about our weight? So let me just get to the more bizarre ones. Etiquette mandates compliance with existing regulations.
Biblical scholars.
Yeah, the biblical. Yeah, some of it I'm like, is there a secret message in here? Biblical scholars argue history. Elderly people are often excluded. Basketball can be an entertaining sport. Mom strongly dislikes appetizers. Grandmother outgrew her upbringing in petticoats. At twilight on the 12th day, we'll have Chablis. It's like, now you're talking. All right. But yeah, just on and on. We like blue cheese, but Victor prefers Swiss cheese. His scalp was blistered from today's hot sun. So I guess, it's like, what is it? Was it the lazy blue dog? No. Was it the brown cow jumped over the lazy blue dog? Isn't that the phrase that has every letter in it? So I'm assuming there's
the fox. Yeah, something about a fox that jumped over something else. I don't remember.
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about.
Graphic designer shown that.
That has all the letters in it, and then they have this whole page of extra sentences. Yeah, they've never met. So just trying to, this kid's froze bad. Pa don't care about the kid. So then I'm like, I see. Maybe you're trying to get some, some ahs in there. Lift, don't shove, lift. And with like these kind of different punctuations.
Right, to get the tone of like a command versus...
Yeah. Did he ever visit here when he was a kid? You lucky kids, he said. This is my hen ledger. And it took me forever, like, what is, and then I was like, oh, a hen ledger. I guess you're keeping a ledger of all your hens or something. But I thought it was like the hen's name was Ledger, but that doesn't
neighborhood.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This is my hen ledger. He informed him in an absorbed way. Like just some of the ways that you have to enunciate. So yeah, so that's next on my agenda, and by the end of September, I hope to make an AI. But yeah, like you were saying about, you know, kind of disrupting, how to disrupt that, how to disrupt the functionality of it, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, is that, and not are they going to agree to that? But you know, it's like when you're paying for a service, is this still, because it's also, you know, new-ish, do they will they say, no, we don't want you looking, you know, maniacal, because that's going to affect our, you know, our brand or something. But anyway, I guess I'll cross that bridge.
So Dayna, what is your ambition for the AI? Did you just, is this something that you'd always thought, hey, I would just want to try and see what this could be? And yeah, I mean, there's two things. First of all, I want to put my AI to work on this dream project, because I think when I started collecting, so you know, I have basically a database of certainly 100 of my own dreams, and doing them in these different ways, and also working with collage, and you know, I was thinking of myself. Okay, so I know I'm not an AI yet, but doing, you know, these kind of exercises where I would make a dream just kind of very rough out of found footage, kind of similar to how the AI does it, only, you know, it would take me a week as opposed to 2 minutes. And doing these kind of different outputs, and then liking this kind of representation of an AI doing reciting these dreams, because, you know, as you were talking about, like with this hand, you know, do you see your hands, which I'm going to totally try to do tonight. Is that there's such an uncanniness to this AI, and so I want to see what that kind of looks like and what that does to, take the same text of a dream that I'm you know, reciting or performing just as I'm waking up, versus you know, me all coiffed but AI as a, you know, reciting that. But also, since, you know, like as I was saying earlier, with experimenting with some of these AI actors in, let's say, you know, February, March, and, you know, kind of having and asking people to give me their dreams when I was collecting people's dreams, I felt like I had a responsibility, and it just felt too distanced to make another AI recite them. So I'm still not sure about that. You know, is that if you're generous enough to share a dream with me, like, I don't have a problem making fun of myself, but I'm not here to make fun of anybody else. And you know, there's certainly an element of humor in my work, and making sure that, you know, I when people give me the content, to certainly be respectful of that and mindful of that. And so I want to experiment with that. Of, you know, I've been experimenting too with, like, if someone's given me a dream and give me, you know, permission to use it, is okay, how it does it have the same impact? Like, because this dream project is kind of comes from this place of, you know, it's like karaoke. You either love karaoke or you hate karaoke. You love hearing about people's dreams, or you're just like, oh my God, please don't tell me your stupid dream. And kind of using that, right, of at the end of the day, are all dreams the same, really? Not necessarily in content, but, you know, that it's, you know, when you hear someone else's, it's like, what is that experience? You know, is it, does it frustrating? Is it boring? Is it, okay, you're telling me a story that, yes, came from your, you know, unconscious mind. So what, kind of thing, you know? So yeah, I'm not sure if that answered your question. No, that's amazing. Like, it's kind of you're making that process of curating and retelling the story personal by by putting yourself in there, which I think is really interesting.
Would you let her be hired? But I mean, as a performance artist, right? I mean, she could perform other people's. Would you rent her out? Would you put her to work as an actor, as a paid actor?
Oops. Yeah, that is the question. That is the question. Well, and that's the thing too, is because I was thinking, well, you know, so the second kind of leg of that, so putting the AI to work on this dream project, but then also, you know, speaking of labor and hiring AIs to, I'm not sure if we talked about this in the live, but you know that there are, we talked about you know, hiring an AI actor for sure to perform something, but there's also you can text to video editing. So you know, you can type in your script and output a very generic keyword generated video script. So I don't know if it's like you know, I think we were talking about synergy before, or like, oh, this pizza example, you know, Joe's Pizza Restaurant has tables, so that an AI video editor will find Creative Commons footage, stock footage, throw it in a timeline based on your script, and pump out a video script. Again, that costs you however much money, $50 to $100, versus, you know, hiring someone who actually does that work, or a production studio to make that work. So so yeah, it's so one of the aspects I wanted to look at too was labor practices within, so using my AI. So, you know, because I think, you know, we talked about this before too, about artists being, you know, how do artists get paid? You know, what are you paying for when you say have an artist come to your university classroom as a guest speaker? You know, what are you paying for when you have when you know, like with something like this? You know, what is that? Where's the value, right? I'm sure I could go on a much longer rant about about artists and value and you know, contribution to society. What gets cut? What gets, you know, kept?
Right. Yeah,
you know, we've certainly seen that, you know, in Canadian history, federal funding, as well as the various provinces, and certainly in the States, we see, you know, when the arts funding gets cut, and just also these varying degrees of fees, right? We have CARFAC in Canada for artist fees, right? So, you know, it's like, oh, we'd love you to come and talk to our class. We don't really have a budget, so well, you get the AI then, you know. So there is some aspects of labor that I want to be able to use this doppelganger for, but then am I just exploiting my own AI, you know, as well?
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I think a lot of these places, like for me, what I see some of the biggest possibilities of, I used to work in an organization in gender-based violence like 15 years ago. And we did all of our programs after school in Scarborough and stuff. And we would look to make flyers, like to make an outreach flyer. For images of young people of color, like people with turbans, you know, like people who look like the people we were trying to engage in the program.
Yeah.
Sure.
And we had to literally pay someone on the legal team who just happened to have the skill to be able to draw, you know, like you know, in Adobe, like, you know, in Illustrator or something like that, where it could actually be like a beautiful, good version. So we had this person, it's completely different skill, right? She's an author, lawyer, like whatever, works in this other department and was doing this because we couldn't find with stock images, images. We were like, we can't put program out, you know, things out like this.
Yeah.
So then you've got these things that could technically, like, you know, I've been clicking away. You might hear some like clicking in the background. I've just been taking some of the phrases that you guys have been saying and just kind of, I'm going to see if I can drop them in here. But I also looked up like person of color, realism and style of realism or whatever and stuff like that.
Okay.
But okay, so here you can get these photographs, but then this defeats the purpose, right? So one, they're taking the images from stereotypes to create these images that you're looking for that are missing, that are gaps in representation.
Yeah, supposed to be
Instead of hiring people. What's that?
Well, I'm kind of curious about the pool. So, like, it seems like is this kind of pool a dynamic pool of imagery that's taken for the AI generation? So I kind of wonder over time if the nature will kind of like evolve with the the open source data that's currently out there. It's kind of it's an interesting one. I do wonder what it would look like 10, 20 years down the line. I remember when for me it was like Googling, there was the big thing about professional hairstyles and you Google professional hairstyle and it's all very kind of it's just very just stereotypical kind of like professional hairstyles or whatever. But I know that the people actively producing more even more open, more Creative Commons imagery for these kind of uses. So I do wonder how it will look in the future as well, if maybe those will start to kind of help the pool, right?
Well, one would hope that things would become more open to have more people who have been traditionally marginalized from both representation and getting paid for it to be to be their own, to represent themselves, right? But it looks like capitalism and technology stuff wins again, and they're like, here's a great way to not pay people in the margin, still represent them, right? Like I wonder, can you ask questions? So this is Crayon here, crayon.com, where we've been doing this. DALL-E is the software that's underneath it, right? And so I guess there's other sites as well, or is Crayon like that's where DALL-E lives? Or
say that again.
So DALL-E is a software. So this is going to be my stupid question. Anybody out there, if you've got questions of any kind, go ahead and put them in the chat. But DALL-E is a open AI software that this site that you're on here, Crayon, that we've been on playing with, is using that, right? So there's nowhere that DALL-E lives on its own. There's no DALL-E.com or whatever.
No, and I think that's a recent transition, because I noticed, like if you search it, right, it says it's now hosted here at Crayon. So I don't know what the business relationship is. Just also coming back to this prompt I asked about 10 minutes ago, is what do you dream about as an AI? And this is what came back. And again, like, am I asking DALL-E, like, maybe I should be more specific to that, this kind of romantic notion of, am I talking to the machine? Or is, and likewise, in terms of privacy issues, maybe DALL-E is like, listen, lady, just stay in your lane. We don't need you to come ask us stuff. Because I did go down kind of this rabbit hole of asking AI, like, so asking these prompts of like, you are an AI artist, and with this kind of idea that perhaps I'm, you DALL-E are the AI artist, and what does that mean? What does that look like? Like, what do you like to do? This was one I asked, and it's like, well, is this again an answer, or is it a representation? Because if this was a movie, right, DALL-E would become sentient, and this would be a whole, these hopes and dreams would be spelled out, and we would see them. So this is like,
what do you like to do? Plot world domination. That's what I like to do.
Exactly.
Just casually on the weekend.
Well, it was funny that the first one that you put in for artists was all painting. I mean, that's not that surprising in terms of the data set, but at the same time, it's kind of like self-hating as the DALL-E, like, because it's kind of, they don't have any digital. It's like traditional painting is where art is at, and it's
Yeah, well, and I've played around with like performance versus performance art as well, because performance often spits back dance or dance
Right.
space. But as we saw today with that weird, did I show that one? That weird performance artist one. Here, let's just go through some of these. That was kind of sporty. Those weird eyeballs.
Oh yeah, that first one.
Right there's that sporty, kind of sporty spice action happening. Oh yeah, okay. So this is the aging queer performance artist. This is just queer performance artist. Performance artist. Painting. Boom.
Mm.
Oh, there I am. Dayna. So I typed in Dayna McLeod, watch me work.
Mm.
Right.
Oh, but that wasn't sporty. I think I had one that was.
It's pretty sporty.
I'm super sporty. But I had one of. Okay, yeah, here we go. So this was Dayna McLeod performance, very sporty.
Mm-hmm.
And then specifying with performance art. So these are the profiles.
Mm.
Okay.
Right? Those are the choices, obviously. And it seems to be a lot of like jumping, you know, that high jump or gymnastics.
Mm.
Or maybe one running. But yeah. So there you go.
I'm wondering about these frequently asked questions. Like I want to ask them, yeah, like what are the parameters of their data set and what are the permissions? Just like you were saying. I mean, the assumption is that if things are marked properly, then all of that, like, it's not making it from the entire internet, but just that. But apparently there's a lot of questions about whether that is.
Well, and with some of these other companies we've been talking about, you know, there's and it's, I think it's something to keep an eye on, is the ethics, like where not only are where things you know, kind of coming from, if it's image based, but how is it working? And so and ethics is not my area of specialization by any stretch, but it is interesting to consider. It's like, okay, certainly we have copyright to contend with about, okay, who is, you know, this man, who is this woman, who is this actor, who have been made into AIs. But then also, like, I would assume, and you know what they say about that, is I would assume that, you know, just with how they keep talking about the DALL-E as education and learning, that I think both in the States and Canada, and depending on, you know, other countries' sense of fair dealing and fair use, that they're using that to be able to use the internet as a data set, as opposed to things that are flagged. That would be my guess.
Right. Yeah. And what is the consent from from communities that are then, you know, in those original things before they're fragmented and whatever.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah.
Well, and you know, so just further to your question, again, I don't know how it works, but I just coming from like kind of a privacy and a copyright angle, it does the, you know, as opposed to, again, just shooting us back a Google search, is how many, is there, like, say, a minimum of images that one, like, say, let's say, for example, this image, is there a minimum of images that this image needs to be made of? Right. So that it's, you know, it's sampled from, let's say, 10. I don't know. Is that the right number? Is it 100? How many elements need before it passes copyright? You know, if that makes sense. If we're taking it, I don't even know if that's the right question to be asking about that. But you know, if
who owns it? The company?
It's
that's a question now too. Is like, who are you collaborating with as an artist? On a lot of these sites, right? There are proprietary elements that, and especially with the video, you have to get approval for some of the videos to be used. So it certainly is interesting to see how this will progress. I mean, I guess it's a fairly obvious statement, but just with this question of what are these images made of, and how many images are they made of, and what are, like, just working in Photoshop, or working in in some of these image-based softwares, is how are things being blended? Like, if I look at, like, let's say this face is made, it doesn't look like collage as we know it from, say, magazines or cutout. And like, how we were talking about the hands, like, look at these hands, oh my goodness, like, no criticism, DALL-E, I appreciate you. But so how are these kind of more organic shapes being produced here? And again, that is just I'm just taking it from, like, the copyright, permissions, privacy angle.
Where does one thing, if this is a remix, where does one thing begin and where does the other thing end? When there's really no, like, cut line. There's not like a kind of the credits.
It's as if the notes stripped down to the very notes themselves. It's like, I guess I'd be very curious if anyone's been able to recognize any original images, but so far I haven't really come across people identifying. I mean, except for, like, celebrity, obviously, you kind of have some remixes where celebrities making pancakes with a different celebrity or something, but they're all complete. It's a very interesting area.
I'm gonna just look up, actually, CN Tower or whatever, because it's interesting to me. It's very much like you were saying, how it's very different than a Google image search, right? Because it's not when I'm I put in the word uncanny, and it's not giving me back what you would get from Googling uncanny, right? It's giving me something completely different. And the labor piece, like, I wonder, like, when you say that you have to give permission, like, again, you get all of these in the supposed name of protection, you often get new gatekeepers that arise, and it's like, and I guess you'll find out. So maybe we'll check in with you at some time. To wrap up soon, but like, do they get residuals? Like, who are they checking in with? Are they checking in with this AI's agent, being like, are you cool with taking this gig, and this is the percentage you're gonna get from? You know what I mean? Like, so if you put your AI to work, share with us all her
all her deets.
Do you need an AI agent? Like, is that agent a human? Like,
well, I mean, I have looked at, like, looking at the, like, that falls under some of the ethics and labor practices on some of these sites, right? That rest assured, everyone's been paid and have agreed to, which I'd love to get my eyes on a contract. Also, I mean, again, I feel like, disclaimer, if anyone is watching this that is actually works in AI and is just screaming at the screen right now that you don't know what you're talking about, I mean, fair. Again, I don't have any idea how the inner workings or how these algorithms work. Again, just trying to come at it from a permissions copyright angle of, like, is that even how it works? I mean, this conversation we've just been having might be irrelevant because an AI expert might be like, that's not how it works, which is, I'd love to hear about that. So this is Tom Cruise goes to space with a pineapple and a pizza, wearing a top hat.
I love this.
There we go.
It
looks like variations in the pizza there. Look at that.
Well, because after you said that thing about, like, oh, phew, she's just asking for a pizza, thought maybe that would be.
It's a happy, safe place for the AI. Wow.
Well, I want to thank you and so much for being with us today, because it was so awesome. And I also want to just say, what we're trying to do here and have these conversations is there are no experts. There's too much expertise within the thinking of maybe Creative Commons in general. In this, and certainly that creates a huge barrier to a lot of people of just kind of exploring, like, this is what we're the people that need to be asking these questions, right? I don't need no, sure, there's people with PhDs in AI, and that's great. But we're talking about how this relates to image making and, you know, like working in collaborating with humans, collaborating with fragments of humans, fragments of images, fragments of communities, and reiterating, and yeah, I don't, screw them if you're out there saying we don't know anything, you're wrong.
Hey, the amount of things I don't know, we could fill a whole library.
Well, I think with AI, the most important thing is that we just all start asking a lot of questions because it's going so fast.
That's right.
Yeah.
We need to find the right questions before it's like, you know.
It kind of has a pizza face in this one.
That's not, yeah, I wasn't expecting that application of the use of pizza, like in like a fusion with Tom Cruise and the pizza.
Yeah.
Maybe
the pizza's wearing a top hat. I didn't use any commas.
There we go. That's like a pizza bicep. It's kind of going on.
Yeah, it is kind of a pizza bicep.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean the hours of hilarity, right, that you can have with, as you're saying, you know, who's your favorite actor and make them do a thing.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely going to post some of the ones that I took as we went along.
Send you this Tom Cruise one.
Yeah, please send me as many as you can. I'll.
Okay. Well, so yeah, I'll do it because now, of course, with all this copyright talk, I feel like, you know, we gotta do a Disney one. Show me Disney.
Absolutely.
Just all of it.
All of Disney.
Just all of it.
Show me all of Disney. Okay. That yeah, we'll see. Because sorry. I guess my head is just so in copyright, privacy, labor practices. That's you know how talking works. That's what we're talking about. So that's what I'm thinking about.
No, and I think it's important, but I think that sometimes that's what I think it's very much related because we when you were talking about how they say on the website, basically, like, you know, don't worry your pretty little heads over it. Like we got this, like the artist is getting paid.
Yeah.
And this is how our relationship with most things, right? Like people who pay for Spotify, they're like, yes, like I paid for it. Like the artist is getting paid, right? But even Taylor Swift is coming out and being like, ringing the bell of like, no, that's not what it's like. So interesting.
Okay.
Oh, so now my question is, does Disney sue?
Yeah, because this isn't Mickey. This isn't like this. I mean, they've sued so many people.
Well, that's
Mickey.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're the most litigious. So.
Have they ever gone by percentage of similarity or like? Because I mean, with characters, it just gets so.
This one.
Oh wow! Look at this.
I'm finding it interesting that this like I feel like your all of is bringing back these split screens.
Okay.
Right? Like doing like 3 images in one. Like
right.
DALL-E is listening to us about the proprietary nature of images and image making, and is like, no, let's remix that. Because look at that. What is that? That's 4 in there.
But you know what's interesting is if you took any one of these kind of examples and just zoomed in, that probably wouldn't resemble one of the characters enough to, if you kind of like really, I feel like the whole collection, it kind of like, you can see it all around, but I feel like if you zoomed in on one, perhaps it could be seen as a new character.
Well, okay, now you're just blowing my mind, because also like a lot of times, like these companies, these massive corporations, they use AI to identify who's stealing their stuff, right?
Yeah.
So if the AI is making the stolen stuff, and does the AI recognize it as? But like what you're saying is that it's not enough of it. Like, you know, it's not enough of a percentage. Like you couldn't win in a court case because they'd say like no one's going to mistake this for Mickey.
Yeah.
But your own AI mistakes it for Mickey because it recognizes that the AI that generated it was going for Mickey.
But it keeps an encrypted promise, an encrypted secret for you that it. But it's like it's between you and AI. That's my pun for tonight.
I'm gonna look
Between you and your AI.
That's right.
between you and. All right, and we should well I mean I can stick around. I'm available. I'm available to keep going, but I do believe we might even have. We're still broadcasting, but the recording. I don't know. Anyways, we'll see. In terms of the StreamYard account that we have, I think at some point it doesn't record past whatever. Okay. So we'll see what's posted tomorrow. But just fascinating stuff. Like, really great to have these conversations with you, and so yeah, there's so many that kind of circle around the comments and copyright and wow.
This is Mickey Mouse doing a grandma who knit a sweater of Donald Duck.
Oh my God.
But yeah. I mean, again, like for those of you playing at home, you know, it's just there's infinite combinations and challenges with this stuff, eh? So, and my menopausal list video, I'll post that to Vimeo when I get it done. I need to figure out a few little more bits. Got to find the right eyeball. But thank you so much for having me. This has just been so great.
It's been so amazing to see the process kind of behind the pieces, right? And just like even just seeing you work and kind of enter these prompts in as we're talking. I think I'll certainly be trying to kind of see what I can get out of this. And I know a lot of viewers will also be trying some of these AI tools for the first time. So yeah.
Yeah, they must have thought we were something smart because nobody asked any questions. That's always a sign of intimidation. Yeah, we will. I will definitely. We'll keep folks posted, and I will be following following up with you about your AI for hire.
Yes, that's right. I feel lawyer, fake lawyer.
Well, will you be able to have different outfits, or you'll just have one outfit?
Well, no, you gotta have one outfit. You gotta have one, but it's a real concern. What am I gonna wear?
Really settings, yeah. Okay.
You know? And because I think what I'll get back is I'll be able to green screen it onto different backgrounds, right? So if I make a good choice shirt wise or outfit wise, I might be able to just green screen the outfit to different colors. So but I gotta look on that. I mean, like out of the box it's going to be one thing, but then once I put it in After Effects or put it in Premiere or whatever, I think I'll be able to make some good choices.
Right. And so your AI, so we've got someone here saying it's fascinating. Your AI will be two-dimensional then, because it won't be a 3D scan. It'll be
exactly. Yeah.
Always front facing.
Yeah. Always. Yeah. So I'll be practicing my
never able to storm out with no agency to storm.
That's right.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so very much. Great.
Thank you.
Thanks to everyone. We'll see you next time. We're back in how many weeks now? It'll be 4 weeks or so.
Shall be.
We shall. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.